It's a great honor and a privilege to have Adiv Baruch with us, the chairman of the Israel Export Institute.
Thank you, Jeff.
From your point of view, when you take a look at how the pandemic has affected Israel's economy and our ability to compete internationally, how would you describe what you think some of the challenges have been?
We all have been caught with COVID-19 completely unprepared. And when COVID-19 started, looking at the East, looking to China, realizing that there's going to be complete shutdowns, and then the Israeli government made a decision to shut down the borders, we immediately stepped up to the plate and said, what can we do in order to create business continuity? And the things that I've seen and analyzed is that all of a sudden, we see the world actually moving on steroids to the digital space. And what does that mean? How can I, all of a sudden, a person who's been traveling the world, we are a generation that have been used to conduct business by meeting people, touching the people, looking into the white of their eyes. We're all human society. And all of a sudden, we have to shift that into the digital arena.
One of the things which has been a cornerstone of the activities that you've been involved with, at least at the Israel Export Institute, and also in your own career, has been going into conferences and getting on planes and just making sure you're seeing people. How will Israel be able to compete if you're not going to be able to get on a plane or go to a conference and show your opportunities?
There are actually three layers into your question. Because first and foremost, there's always the introduction of new companies to their new ecosystem. And the new introduction, if you're not well qualified to manage those processes on the digital space, all of a sudden you will have a setback because people normally will wait until the world will open up and come back to some type of normalization to the era that they had before. But we have realized, and that was my working assumption, that the world is never going to be the same as it was before the COVID-19. And that means that we have to create the right platforms in order to have the right introduction for the business environment with their ecosystem, also to create the proper training and know-how. So high-level managers will be able to execute properly when they are moving into the digital video conferences and so forth, because there's always a gap. Now, the third layer to that gap is always how do you manage your internal teams? A, because people now have been working remotely, and B, now that you have your offices around the world and you don't have the proper opportunity to travel and to have team meetings within your premises, how do you manage your own internal stuff in order to optimize their productivity? So when you look at all those layers, that means that the managers in this new era have to receive and to adopt what we call a new skill sets in order to increase the productivity, both outside the organization and internally, within the organization.
I know that you've been on countless missions, going with the Israeli Prime Minister or the President to China and to all sorts of countries in Europe and in the United States and around the world, and meeting with business leaders and other political leaders. I'm assuming that you've been in touch with them over the past couple of months. What are you hearing from them?
Well, it's not only hearing, but it's being there and seeing there and realizing that if in the past we had to deal with different culture gaps, when you travel the world and you have different leaders with their own cultures and different languages, and sometimes when you have those meetings you have interpreters in order to optimize the session and to make sure that you're not missing every point, all of a sudden you have a new culture that came in, and that culture called the digital culture. All of a sudden you have to speak differently, you have to behave differently, you have to respect the others, and you have to listen, to be more in a listening mode rather than just a speaking mode. So there is a whole new culture that even official officers, leaders have now to adopt. And that's something that is always, it's a challenge, but we can overcome it.